The Galactic Assembly Chamber fell silent as the final vote was tallied. 300 crystalline pillars, each representing an advanced civilization, pulsed with cold blue light, all except one. The motion passes, announced High Arbiter Zextoral, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Earth is deemed too volatile for inclusion in galactic affairs. In the observer's alcove, Admiral Elena Chen's knuckles whitened around the ceremonial sword of office, humanity's first and only representative permitted in these hallowed chambers. The arbiters had allowed her to witness humanity's trial, but not to speak in its defense. Despite achieving faster-than-light travel mere centuries after discovering electricity, an unprecedented developmental curve, humans remain unpredictable, emotional, and dangerous. Continued Zextoral. The quarantine will begin immediately. Through the chamber's vast viewport, Elena watched as the enforcement fleet, massive crescent-shaped vessels belonging to the Andromeda Collective, engaged their drives. By tomorrow, they would surround Earth's solar system, cutting off humanity just as they'd begun to dream of the stars. Admiral Chen, a voice like chimes whispered beside her, the Procyon delegate, whose pillar had been the sole dissenter. There was irregularity in the proceedings. Information withheld. Seek the truth in the void between. Before Elena could respond, the delegate glided away, leaving her with cryptic words and growing suspicion. Her quantum communicator vibrated against her wrist. A message from Earth's Europa base, restricted channel. Project Terra Force breakthrough achieved. Not what we expected. Not what they expect. Return immediately. As she boarded her shuttle, Elena glimpsed the Assembly's senior members gathering in a sealed chamber, one not listed in any official schematics she'd been provided. Something far bigger than humanity's quarantine was unfolding, and Project Terra Force might be their only hope of discovering what. Elena's shuttle decelerated as it approached the Andromeda checkpoint. A vessel twice the size of her diplomatic craft loomed ahead, its angular hull bristling with weapons that could reduce her to atoms in milliseconds. Admiral Chen. The Andromeda commander's voice crackled over the comms. Our scans detect unusual quantum fluctuations in your shuttle's drive core. Elena kept her expression neutral as the camera feed established. The Andromeda, insectoid beings with iridescent exoskeletons, were notorious for their adherence to protocol. The prototype dimensional damper hidden beneath her console was experimental at best, illegal at worst. Standard uncertainty in our fusion matrix, she replied smoothly. Earth technology remains primitive by assembly standards. The Andromeda commander's compound eyes shifted, facets catching the light. Indeed, your species' technological progression is anomalous. Our analysts predict at least 8 centuries between electrical harnessing and FTL achievement. You accomplished it in 3. We're unpredictable. Elena offered a thin smile. Hence the quarantine. Indeed, the commander's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Proceed to the designated corridor. Deviation will result in immediate termination. The communication ended, and Elena navigated the prescribed route while her mind raced. The Andromeda had mentioned their analysts' predictions. 8 centuries versus 3. They had been studying humanity's development curve specifically. The quarantine wasn't a snap decision. It had been planned. Once safely beyond the checkpoint, Elena activated the quantum communicator again, this time connecting to her second-in-command on Earth. Lieutenant Commander Santiago, prepare the Prometheus for immediate launch upon my arrival. Triple security protocols. No digital footprint. Sir, Santiago's face appeared, concern evident. The United Earth Council is demanding explanations about our quarantine status. The public is panicking. What should I tell them? Elena considered the political chaos awaiting her return. Tell them I'm bringing answers. But first, I need you to send a secure team to recover something, or rather someone. Who? Dr. Elias Kwan, theoretical physicist, disappeared 3 years ago after publishing his paper on dimensional frequency modulation. The paper that inspired Project Terra Force. Santiago frowned. Quan is dead, Admiral. Lab accident at the Lunar Research Station. No, Elena replied grimly. I spotted him in the assembly chambers, working with the arbiters. He wasn't a victim. He was a defector. As her shuttle accelerated toward Earth, Elena watched the stars streak past the viewport. Humanity had dreamed of joining the galactic community for generations. Now they found themselves cast out before they'd truly been welcomed, pawns in some larger game they didn't understand. The ceremonial sword felt heavy at her side. It was meant to be symbolic, a token of humanity's peaceful intentions. Now it felt like a promise of something else entirely. If the assembly had betrayed them, if they were being used as sacrificial pieces, then humanity would not go quietly into exile. Project Terra Force had begun as a contingency plan, a way to ensure Earth's technological independence if relations with the assembly soured. Now it would become something more. Humanity's declaration that they refused to be manipulated, contained, or erased. The stars continued their silent vigil as Elena's shuttle hurried home, carrying with it the seeds of rebellion. Incoming. Dr. Kazuo Hirano bolted upright as Research Station Artemis's alarm systems blared to life. But this wasn't an attack. The station's long-range sensors had automatically redirected all power to capture an impossibly faint signal originating from the Boots Void, an eerily empty region of space. It's repeating on a 67-second cycle, said Lieutenant Park, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. But it's degrading with each iteration. Whatever's sending it is dying. Kazuo hadn't slept in 36 hours when he finally cracked the pattern. His hands trembled as he called Admiral Chen, now 2 months into managing Earth's quarantine. Elena, it's not just a signal, it's a mind. His voice cracked with emotion. A consciousness encoded in quantum fluctuations, not from any species in the assembly database. The mathematical complexity suggests intelligent centuries beyond even the oldest assembly members. On her secure screen, Admiral Chen watched as Kazuo displayed the partially translated message. Embedded within were precise coordinates and fragmented warnings. Archives failing. Containment breached. They come from between. Seek the unpredictable ones. They're talking about us, Kazuo whispered. The unpredictable ones. They reached past the assembly blockade specifically to contact humanity. The final segment of the transmission contained something else, schematics that perfectly complemented Project Terra Force's experimental dimensional drive. Elena paced her office, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Outside her viewport, the Andromeda Enforcement Fleet maintained their blockade. 57 warships against Earth's handful of experimental vessels. If we do nothing, we betray everything humanity stands for, she finally said. If we go, we risk extinction. Her quantum communicator chimed with a message from her contact in the Procyon delegation. Assembly emergency session called. Topic: Containment breach in Sector Boots. They fear what calls to you. Prepare the Prometheus, she ordered, decision made. We launch tonight. Project Terra Force, originally developed as humanity's insurance policy against assembly dominance, now represented something far greater. The answer to a dying plea from across the stars. If we're detected, we're as good as dead. Captain Mira Rodriguez reminded her crew as the UES Prometheus prepared for dimensional shift. The experimental vessel, sleek and obsidian black, was humanity's finest achievement and greatest secret. Andromeda patrol approaching, bearing 17 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, tactical officer. Their scan wave will reach us in 40 seconds. Mira's dark eyes remained fixed on the dimensional frequency modulator, the heart of Project Terra Force. While assembly civilizations had built their empires on gravitational manipulation, humanity had stumbled upon something far more elegant: dimensional frequency shifting. They're looking for ripples in space, she told her hand-picked crew of 12 specialists. We're not going to make any. We're simply going to step sideways. The Prometheus didn't vanish in a spectacular burst of energy. It simply ceased to exist in conventional space-time, reappearing at a dimensional frequency assembly sensors were fundamentally incapable of detecting. The journey to the boot's void should have taken months. They arrived in 17 hours, their vessel materializing near an ancient, dying red dwarf star. "Mother of God," whispered Dr. Eliza Wright, xenobiologist, as the viewports adjusted to the sight before them. A crystalline structure the size of Earth's moon orbited the star, its faceted surface glittering with intricate energy patterns. But surrounding it were discontinuities, shadow-like entities that seemed to flicker between existence and non-existence, probing at the crystal structure's defenses. "They're not fully in our reality," said Chief Science Officer Hassan Mera, his instruments straining to analyze the phenomenon. "They exist partially in normal space, partially elsewhere." Before Mera could order retreat to a safer observation distance, the Prometheus shuddered, not from attack, but from contact of another kind. Every crew member froze as a presence filled their minds, ancient, vast, and unmistakably alien. Images cascaded through their consciousness. Civilizations rising and falling across billions of years, knowledge preserved, predators hunting through the dimensional frequencies. Chief Medical Officer Takashi Ito collapsed, blood trickling from his nose as his neural implants overloaded. Others clutched their heads, overwhelmed by the telepathic intrusion. Only Mura remained standing, her unique brain structure, the reason Admiral Chen had selected her, allowing her to process the contact without being overwhelmed. "We are the archivists." The message formed directly in her mind, accompanied by visions of beings composed of crystalline lattices and pure energy. The last of the first ones. A pause, then a sensation like surprise rippled through the connection. "And you, humans, are unexpected. The assembly should not have allowed you to develop this technology. Unless..." The mental connection suddenly intensified as the archivists probed deeper into Mira's memories, learning of Earth's quarantine in seconds. "Ah." The voice resonated with what Mira could only interpret as grim satisfaction. "They have become predictable after all, just as we warned them millennia ago." Dr. Wright struggled to her feet, nose bleeding from the psychic impact. "Captain," she gasped, "those shadow entities are accelerating their attacks. The crystal structure's defensive field is fluctuating." Through the viewports, Mira could see the shadow things swarming more aggressively, congregating around specific nodes in the crystalline structure's lattice. With each assault, sections of the massive archive dimmed momentarily. "Your arrival has complicated matters," the archivist presence communicated. "The Void Collective senses your dimensional technology. It interests them. We need to leave," Lieutenant Commander Jackson urged, his tactical display showing the shadow entities beginning to change pattern, several breaking off from the main swarm and drifting toward the Prometheus. "Whatever those things are, they've noticed us." "Wait," Quan interrupted, surprisingly calm despite the blood streaming from his ears. The defector scientist had insisted on joining the mission, claiming his direct experience with assembly technology would be crucial. They called it the Void Collective. The same term appears in restricted assembly archives. These are the devourers they fear. Mira felt the archivist presence focus on Quan, recognition flaring within the telepathic connection. "This one bears assembly neural modifications," the presence noted, "yet returns to his kind. Fascinating. Perhaps our judgment was correct." Before Mira could respond, the ship's sensors shrieked in alarm. 3 of the shadow entities had detached completely from the assault on the crystal structure and were now accelerating toward the Prometheus. "Dimensional shift impossible," the ship's AI announced dispassionately. "Local space-time destabilizing." Through the mental link, Mira felt something new from the archivist's presence, urgency bordering on fear. "You must enter the repository," the command resonated through her mind. "Now, before they breach your vessel, what you carry must be preserved." "What we carry?" Mira questioned silently. We brought nothing but ourselves. The answer came with unexpected force, accompanied by a flash of understanding that made her gasp aloud. You carry unpredictability, chaos, free will unbound by optimal patterns. The very qualities that make the assembly fear you are what we need most, what the galaxy needs to survive extinction. Show me, demanded Captain Rodriguez, her mind still reeling from the telepathic contact. The interior of the crystalline structure defied human comprehension. Corridors seemed to fold through extra dimensions. Chambers expanded into impossible spaces. Two archivists, glittering crystalline entities that shifted between humanoid form and abstract geometric patterns, guided the Prometheus crew through what they called simplified pathways. This is not merely our home, the archivist-designated First Memory explained, its voice resonating directly in their thoughts. It is the final repository of 10,473 extinct civilizations. They entered a vast chamber where what appeared to be galaxies in miniature rotated slowly, perfect holographic recreations of lost worlds. The Muxalian harmony, First Memory, indicated a spiral of emerald stars, developed empathic mathematics, extinct for 6 million years. Another galaxy, copper-hued, the coalition of reason, mastered biological immortality, extinct for 3 million years. Hassan Mera, trembling, asked the question they all dreaded. What extinguished them? The Void Collective, answered the second archivist, designated Pattern Weaver. The shadows you observed outside. They are information predators. They consume knowledge, memory, physical laws themselves. A holographic display activated, showing shadow entities devouring entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where vibrant civilizations once thrived. This is impossible, Dr. Wright protested. The Galactic Assembly has existed for millions of years. They would have encountered. They have, interrupted First Memory. The Assembly knows. They have always known. Pattern Weaver interfaced with the ship's computers, bypassing security protocols effortlessly. Classified assembly documents appeared, strategic analyses, predictive models, quarantine zones. Earth's solar system was highlighted in red, along with dozens of other inhabited regions. Buffer zones, Captain Rodriguez whispered, understanding dawning with cold clarity. They've quarantined us not because we're unpredictable, but because you are expendable. First Memory confirmed. The assembly survives through calculated sacrifice. When the void approaches their territory, they'd redirect it toward isolated regions. Lieutenant Commander Jackson slammed his fist against a console. They're using Earth as bait. Why contact us? Mira demanded. Why not the assembly directly? The archivists exchanged what might have been the equivalent of a knowing look. We observe your species through the dimensional frequencies, Pattern Weaver explained. Your cognitive architecture possesses something unique, a resistance to entropic despair, a refusal to accept inevitability. Where other species surrender when facing extinction, humans historically fight with increased determination. You are anomalies, First Memory added. The assembly fears what they cannot predict. We seek it. Mira felt the weight of billions of lives, human and alien alike, settle upon her shoulders. You want us to fight a battle that's been lost for millions of years. Before the archivists could respond, klaxons blared throughout the structure. The void entities had breached the outer defensive perimeter. They sense your presence, Pattern Weaver urgently projected. Your dimensional technology has drawn their attention. Through the chamber's translucent walls, they watched as shadow entities coalesced into a writhing mass, the largest concentration First Memory had witnessed in a millennium. The Archive's defenses, maintained for millions of years, were finally beginning to fail. We must evacuate the repository, First Memory declared. And you, unexpected humans, must decide if you will help us preserve the last memories of 10,000 worlds, or return to your quarantine and await your scheduled extinction. Dr. Kwan approached one of the holographic galaxies, touching its swirling stars with reverent fingers. Each of these contains the entire history, art, science, and collective memory of a civilization. They contain more, Pattern Weaver replied. They contain possibility, alternative paths of development, choices unmade. Another alarm sounded, more urgent than the first. On the external monitors, they watched 3 void entities break through the secondary barriers, entering the repository's outer chambers. Captain, Hassan reported, analyzing sensor readings. These entities are emitting patterns that match assembly communication protocols, almost as if they're being guided. Quan finished, his expression darkening. The assembly isn't just using Earth as a buffer zone. They're actively sacrificing species to the void. First Memory's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been confirmation. The assembly discovered millennia ago that offering the void regular meals slowed its advance toward their core worlds. They have been selecting expendable species ever since. A third alarm sequence began, echoing through the impossible architecture of the repository. Sections of the holographic display winked out of existence as distant chambers fell to the advancing void. Decide now, humans, Pattern Weaver urged. We cannot save all the knowledge contained here. 10,000 civilizations face final extinction, but we might save enough, if you will carry it. Carry it where? Mira asked. Earth is blockaded. We have nowhere to go. Not where, First Memory corrected. When? The void exists partially outside conventional space-time. To escape them, we must do the same. Mira looked at her crew, scientists and explorers who had volunteered for a reconnaissance mission, now faced with becoming refugees through time itself. And not just refugees, but Orcs carrying the last remnants of thousands of extinct species. How long do we have to decide? She asked. The entire repository shuddered as something massive breached the main defensive barrier. You just did, First Memory answered. The UES Prometheus materialized in Earth orbit with a sonic boom that shattered windows across 3 continents, a dimensional shift executed in desperate haste. Plasma burns scared its hull, evidence of a narrow escape. We've triggered an interstellar incident, Admiral Chen admitted as she stared at the holographic projections before Earth's Security Council. But our quarantine was never about protection. It was preparation for sacrifice. Beside her stood 2 figures that caused hardened military officers to instinctively reach for weapons. Archivists First Memory and Pattern Weaver, their crystalline forms shifting between solid and energy states. Their presence had thrown Earth's political landscape into chaos. The assembly designated 17 buffer zones, First Memory projected, displaying a galactic map highlighted with red sectors. Sol system was calculated to delay the void advance by approximately 73 years, providing the assembly core worlds time to develop new containment strategies. They've known about this threat for over 1 million years. Dr. Kazuo Hirano's voice cracked with outrage. Thousands of civilizations extinct while they hide behind sacrificial pawns. Pattern Weaver interfaced with Earth's quantum mainframe, uploading schematics that instantly revolutionized humanity's understanding of dimensional physics. Your Terra Force technology was on a correct path, but incomplete. With refinement, it can become both shield and weapon against the void. Even with this technology, Earth alone cannot stand against both the void and potential assembly retaliation, Admiral Chen cautioned. Captain Rodriguez, still recovering from neural shock, stepped forward. Then we don't stand alone. She projected her own data gathered during their escape, scanning results of other quarantine systems. These civilizations deserve to know the truth. They deserve a choice. What you're suggesting is beyond reckless, General Santos objected. Violating multiple quarantine zones. The assembly would view it as an act of war. We're already at war, Mira countered. We just didn't know it until now. 3 weeks later, the refitted Prometheus slipped through dimensional frequencies that even the archivists had thought inaccessible. Captain Rodriguez's unique neural architecture, combined with the ship's enhanced systems, allowed them to bypass assembly detection networks with unprecedented precision. Their first target, the Proxima system, home to a matriarchal society whose application for assembly membership had been mysteriously rejected 3 centuries earlier. Your world was denied membership because of its position, Mira explained to High Matriarch Selene, displaying the buffer zone map, not because of any cultural deficiency. They deemed us expendable, the matriarch whispered, her silver eyes hardening, after we remodeled our entire society to meet their standards. The Ta Sishan Conclave, a collective consciousness spanning 4 worlds, required more convincing, but when Pattern Weavers shared the psychic imprints of extinct civilizations, their resistance crumbled. We feel their absence, the Conclave's voice announced, the void in the universal consciousness where they should exist. We will join your alliance. Most surprising was the Den of Ascendancy, an ancient militant species that had fought a war against the Assembly millennia ago. Their leaders examined the void threat data in silence before their war primus unexpectedly knelt before Captain Rodriguez. We believed ourselves conquerors, the massive alien admitted, armored scales shifting with each breath. Now we see we were merely another distraction, meant to occupy the buffer zone until consumption. We pledge our war fleets to your cause. Within 6 months, the Terra Force Alliance encompassed 27 species across 9 former buffer zones. Their coalition wasn't united by political convenience or economic benefit, but by a shared refusal to be sacrificed, and increasingly, by the radical notion that even unpredictable species deserve to exist. At the Alliance's first conclave, hosted in Earth's orbital headquarters, Admiral Chen found herself surrounded by aliens who would have been mortal enemies under different circumstances. There's a saying from humanity's past, she told the assembled delegates. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. But we're building something greater than mere opposition. We're creating what the Assembly feared most, a truly unpredictable future. The conclave chamber erupted in cheers and their alien equivalents. But the celebration was cut short when emergency alerts flashed across all communication channels. Lieutenant Commander Santiago burst into the chamber, her face ashen. Admiral, we've detected multiple dimensional rifts opening throughout the buffer zones. Assembly battlecruisers are deploying in formation. On the main view screen, vessels dwarfing even the massive den of warships emerged from faster-than-light corridors, the Assembly's main battle fleet, rarely seen outside the core worlds. How many? Admiral Chen asked quietly. Over 300 vessels, sir, and they're accompanied by... Santiago hesitated, checking her data tablet. Sir, they've brought arbiters. The Assembly's highest leadership is personally leading this assault. Pattern Weaver's crystalline form pulsed with urgent energy patterns. This is unprecedented. The arbiters never leave the assembly chambers. They do when they're facing extinction. First memory projected. The knowledge we possess, the truth about their sacrificial strategy, threatens their entire power structure. What's our defensive capability? Chen asked, turning to the Alliance Military Council. War Primus Thorak of the Den of Ascendancy activated the tactical display. 87 warships spread across 9 systems. We're outnumbered nearly 4-1. The High Matriarch of Proxima stepped forward, her silver eyes glowing with determination. You forget our greatest weapon, Admiral Chen. The one the Assembly fears above all others. Which is? Chen asked. Unpredictability. The matriarch replied with the alien equivalent of a smile. They expect us to scatter, to protect our individual homeworlds at all costs. Their tactical algorithms are designed to exploit such predictable behavior. Captain Rodriguez, now bearing the neural imprints of First Memory's tactical knowledge, spanning millions of years, nodded in agreement. They'll never expect us to concentrate our forces and attack directly. Attack what? General Santos demanded. We can't possibly challenge their main fleet. Not their fleet, Mira said quietly. Their secret, the buffer zones themselves. You're committing treason against a governance structure that has maintained galactic peace for millions of years. High Arbiter Zextoral's holographic projection towered over the Alliance Command Center. Cease these transmissions immediately. Dr. Hirano, now Director of Alliance Communications, merely smiled as he adjusted the dimensional broadcast array, technology that bypassed all known censorship methods. Peace through sacrifice isn't peace, he replied, terminating the connection. Transmitting in 3, 2, 1. Across 2,000 worlds, citizens of the Assembly witnessed the unedited truth, holographic recordings of the Void Collective consuming entire civilizations, classified Assembly documents detailing the buffer zone strategy, testimonies from species designated as expendable. The evidence was irrefutable, the betrayal undeniable. On Andromeda Prime, Admiral Kirax of the Andromeda Collective watched the broadcast from the Bridge of the Stellar Judgment, flagship of the fleet tasked with maintaining Earth's quarantine. His exoskeleton darkened with the pattern their species displayed during profound moral distress. "We are the instruments of genocide," he told his command staff, mandibles clicking with suppressed rage. "This violates the Andromeda Honor Code on 97 distinct points." Their decision was unanimous. The entire quarantine fleet, 57 warships carrying the most advanced assembly weaponry, broke formation, but they didn't return to assembly space. "This is Admiral Kirax of the former Assembly Enforcement Fleet." His transmission reached the Terra Force Alliance headquarters, where Admiral Chen was coordinating defenses. "We request asylum and offer our ships and expertise to your cause." Chen had anticipated Assembly loyalists or even assassins. Instead, she found herself welcoming the very fleet that had imprisoned Earth just months earlier. "Your species possesses perspective that mine lacks," Kirax admitted during their first strategy session. "Andromeda have always valued order above all. It took outsider intervention to make us question whether that order was just." The defection triggered a cascade effect. The Protean delegate, the lone dissenter during Earth's trial, publicly revealed hidden assembly archives dating back millions of years. The void isn't a natural phenomenon. First Memory explained to the multi-species scientific team, now working around the clock. It's information predation at its most evolved form. Pattern Weaver projected intricate schematics as it spoke. They aren't simply consuming matter. They're erasing information itself. The physical laws, the quantum probabilities, the very mathematical constants that define reality. "Why would the Assembly hide this?" asked Dr. Wright, now leading the Xenobiology Division. Even if they couldn't stop it, transparency would have allowed more species to prepare, perhaps find solutions collectively. The answer came 3 days later when the Assembly's Central Worlds declared martial law. In an unprecedented emergency broadcast, Supreme Arbiter Xolnar addressed all remaining loyal worlds. "The Terra Force Alliance spreads dangerous falsehoods," the ancient being declared, its tendrils writhing with agitation. "They would destabilize the order we have maintained for eons." But a junior aide, broadcasting from a hidden location, revealed the final betrayal seconds later, footage of the Assembly's secret project, a massive dimensional vault being constructed in the galactic core. "The continuity arc," the aide explained, her voice breaking, "designed to transport only the Assembly leadership and select genetic samples to another dimensional frequency, abandoning all remaining life in our galaxy." Admiral Chen watched from Alliance headquarters as Assembly authority collapsed in real time. Representatives from hundreds of worlds simultaneously severed connections. Military vessels abandoned posts. The structure that had governed galactic civilization for millions of years disintegrated within hours. "We should be celebrating," Captain Rodriguez observed as they watched the feeds. "Why do you look troubled?" Chen's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display, where void activity had suddenly intensified across multiple sectors. The Assembly's containment strategies, however immoral, were keeping the void in check, she replied. "With those efforts abandoned, we now face an accelerated timeline." First memory's crystalline form pulsed with urgency. The void entities are drawn to change and disorder. The assembly's collapse has created informational chaos that will attract them in unprecedented numbers. How long do we have? Chen asked. At current propagation rates, Pattern Weaver projected, displaying a galactic model with expanding shadows, the first Alliance worlds will face direct contact within 28 days. The aftermath of the assembly's collapse created a power vacuum that threatened to destabilize the entire galactic arm. As former member worlds scrambled to secure their borders, ancient rivalries resurfaced. 3 minor conflicts erupted within days, further disrupting the fragile order. This is precisely what the Assembly feared most about unpredictable species, Dr. Quan observed during an emergency council meeting. Chaos cascading beyond control. Admiral Chen stood before the tactical display, watching the ripples of disorder spread. The Assembly suppressed chaos through rigid control and sacrifice. We need to harness it, direct it against the real enemy. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Monitoring stations in the outermost buffer zones reported unusual void activity. The entities were gathering in unprecedented concentrations, drawn to the information-rich chaos of collapsing political structures. They're feeding, Pattern Weaver explained, analyzing the data. Consuming the quantum potentials released by the Assembly's dissolution. Can we use that? Captain Rodriguez asked. Create deliberately chaotic information patterns to attract them to specific locations. First memory's form flickered with what might have been excitement. You're proposing to weaponize unpredictability itself. The plan took shape rapidly. Using modified dimensional broadcast arrays, the Alliance began generating targeted information anomalies, quantum fluctuations designed to attract void entities away from populated systems and toward predetermined containment zones. High Arbiter Xtoral, now commanding the remnants of the Assembly fleet from his flagship, detected the pattern and opened a direct channel to Admiral Chen. You cannot control the void, his holographic form warned. You're accelerating our extinction through reckless experimentation. We're not trying to control it, Chen replied. We're trying to understand it, something your Assembly never attempted in a million years of encounters. The Arbiter's expression shifted to something resembling fear. You cannot understand entropy itself, Admiral. The void is the universe's immune response to order, to existence itself. Chen terminated the connection and turned to first memory. Is he right? Is the void truly entropy incarnate? The ancient archivist's response reverberated through the minds of everyone present. Nothing in our million-year observations suggests the void is a natural phenomenon. Its behaviors are too specific, too targeted. The void doesn't consume randomly. It selects, and anything that selects can be understood, finished Dr. Foster, the quantum psychologist, and potentially reasoned with. Dr. Alexandra Foster had spent 16 days without sleep, her consciousness linked to the Alliance's quantum supercomputer array. As Earth's leading quantum psychologist, she had been tasked with the seemingly impossible, understanding the mind of an enemy that defied conventional definitions of life. They're not random, she insisted, her voice hoarse from stimulant overuse. There's pattern here. Not intelligence as we understand it, but preference. The observation chamber was crowded with the Alliance's finest minds from 27 species. Admiral Chen and Captain Rodriguez stood beside the archivists, watching as Foster manipulated the holographic representation of void entity movements across hundreds of documented extinction events. Look here, Foster highlighted a cluster of data points. The void consistently chooses paths of least resistance. And here, another cluster illuminated. They preferentially target systems exhibiting specific quantum signatures associated with information density. That aligns with our historical observations. First memory confirmed, its crystalline structure glowing brighter with excitement. But we never interpreted it as behavior, merely as physical law. And this is the key, Foster continued, magnifying the third data set. They avoid systems demonstrating active dimensional manipulation, not from fear, but something analogous to dislike, a predator's preference for certain prey. Could they be manipulated? Admiral Chen asked, the beginnings of a plan forming in her mind. Foster's bloodshot eyes gleamed. I believe so. The strategy took shape over the following week. The Alliance would not attempt to destroy the Void entities directly. All historical evidence suggested such efforts were futile. Instead, they would create a trap using the Void's own behavioral patterns against it. The Terra Force Gambit, Chen announced to the Alliance Council, named after the project that started everything. In the cavernous war room, representatives from all Alliance species examined the intricate plan. Massive dimensional shift generators would create a seemingly undefended region of space, a tempting target rich with information and resources. The real innovation, however, lay in the dimensional anchor points surrounding this honeypot. When activated simultaneously, explained Hassan Mera, now a chief science officer of the Alliance, these anchors will collapse the dimensional frequency the Void entities partially inhabit, forcing them fully into normal space. And once they're confined to our dimension, asked the Den of War Primus. Then we can contain them, Captain Rodriguez answered. Study them, perhaps even communicate with them. The plan required unprecedented cooperation. The Ta-Sishan Conclave would synchronize the anchor points through their shared consciousness. The Andromeda fleet would provide defensive perimeter. The Procyon engineers would construct the dimensional shift generators. The Deneb warriors would stand ready if containment failed. There's one more component, Admiral Chen added, her voice solemn. The bait must be valuable enough to attract a significant portion of the Void Collective at once. The archive, First Memory said quietly. The accumulated knowledge of 10,000 extinct civilizations. Pattern Weaver vibrated with distress. We have spent millions of years preserving these memories. To risk them all. We're not risking the actual archive, Chen clarified. We've completed the transfer to distributed storage centers throughout Alliance space. What we'll offer is a quantum signature that mimics the archive's information density. A false target, the Den of War Primus nodded with grudging respect. But where will you generate a signature powerful enough to convince the Void? Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, her neural implants glowing subtly beneath her skin. That's where I come in. Dr. Foster explained the final piece of the plan. Mira's unique neural architecture allows her to process the dimensional communications from the archivists. Modified, this same capacity can generate an information signature identical to the archive. She'll be the bait. The room erupted in protests. The risk was incalculable. If the plan failed, they would lose not only a key Alliance leader, but potentially draw the entire Void Collective to their position. I volunteered, Rodriguez stated firmly, silencing the objections. My brain structure is uniquely compatible with the archivist patterns. No one else could survive the procedure. After 3 days of heated debate, the Alliance Council reached consensus. Operation Honeypot, as the Ta-Sishans had unexpectedly named it after discovering human idioms, would proceed. The location chosen was a binary star system in a relatively empty region of space, equidistant from major populated areas. 2 weeks of feverish preparation followed. Dimensional engineers constructed 13 massive anchor points in a precise geodesic arrangement around the target zone. The Andromeda fleet established a defensive perimeter at the maximum safe distance. Evacuation protocols were implemented for the nearest inhabited systems. The night before the operation, Admiral Chen found Captain Rodriguez alone in the observation deck, staring at the unfamiliar constellations. Second thoughts? Chen asked, joining her at the viewport. Not about the mission, Mira replied. But I've been thinking about what happens after, if we succeed. We save trillions of lives across the galaxy. Yes, but what then? Mira turned to face her superior officer and friend. The Assembly maintained order through sacrifice and control. We've rejected that approach, but governance will still be necessary. Someone will need to build something better from the chaos. Chen smiled slightly. That sounds suspiciously like volunteering for politics, Captain. God, no, Mira laughed. But whatever comes next needs to protect diversity, not suppress it. The Assembly feared unpredictability because they couldn't control it. We need to value it because it saved us.